Sometimes it isn't a chart-topping song, a sold-out tour, or a headline-grabbing award that reminds the world why a celebrity truly matters. Sometimes it's something far simpler, something quiet, something human. And today, Blake Shelton reminded everyone of exactly that. In a world where celebrity news usually revolves around controversy, luxury, or carefully crafted public appearances, Blake Shelton made headlines for doing something unexpected. Not because it was flashy, not because it was planned, but because it came straight from the heart. Earlier today, Blake Shelton found himself at the center of online conversation after a small, seemingly ordinary moment began circulating across social media. At first glance, it didn't look like something that would dominate timelines. There were no dramatic lights, no stage, no rehearsed speech. Just Blake, surrounded by everyday life, responding to someone in a way that felt genuine and unfiltered. What made the moment powerful wasn't what he did, it was how he did it. Witnesses described Blake as calm, approachable, and completely present. There was no rush, no sense of obligation, no celebrity barrier. Instead, there was a pause, a moment where he chose connection over convenience. And in today's fast-moving world, that pause spoke louder than any headline ever could. Within hours, short clips and photos began spreading. Fans shared their reactions, many saying the same thing again and again. "This is why we love him." Others pointed out how rare it feels to see a celebrity slow down and truly engage without cameras being the priority. What struck people the most was Blake Shelton's body language. He didn't appear distracted. He didn't glance around for handlers or signals to move on. His attention was fully on the person in front of him. For those watching online, it felt like a reminder of a version of fame that many believe has been lost. As the footage continued to circulate, comments poured in from all corners of the internet. Some fans recalled meeting Blake years ago and having similar experiences. Others admitted they had never been huge country music listeners, but the moment changed how they saw him. There was a sense of warmth in the reactions, not the loud, explosive kind of viral buzz, but something deeper, something more personal. Blake Shelton has always been known for his down-to-earth personality. From interviews to television appearances, he's often described as someone who never fully let fame change who he was at his core. Today's moment seemed to confirm that belief for millions of people who may have only known him through music or TV screens. Industry insiders quietly noted how rare this kind of organic attention is. There was no press release, no announcement, no scheduled appearance, and yet Blake Shelton was trending, not because he tried to be, but because people felt moved enough to share what they saw. In many ways, this simple act created a contrast with the usual celebrity narrative. Instead of distance, there was closeness. Instead of spectacle, sincerity. And that contrast is exactly what made the moment resonate so deeply. As more fans joined the conversation, the story took on a life of its own. People weren't just talking about what happened, they were talking about what it represented. Kindness, presence, respect. The idea that even at the highest level of fame, choosing humanity still matters. Some fans described feeling emotional watching the clip, even without sound. Others said it restored a bit of their faith in celebrities as real people, not just brands. The word humble appeared again and again, followed closely by real and genuine. What's fascinating is how little Blake Shelton himself seemed to seek attention for the moment. There was no immediate reaction post, no attempt to frame the narrative. The story belonged entirely to the people who witnessed it and those who felt its impact online. And perhaps that's why it felt so powerful. In an era where every move is often calculated, this moment felt refreshingly unplanned, a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful headlines come from the simplest actions, from choosing to stop, listen, and care.
As the day continued, major fan pages picked up the story. Reaction videos appeared. Comment sections filled with personal stories of kindness, both from celebrities and everyday people. Blake Shelton's name continued to trend, not attached to drama or controversy, but to something far more enduring: respect. By the end of the day, one thing was clear. Blake Shelton hadn't just made headlines, he had made an impression. The kind that lingers longer than a news cycle. The kind that reminds people why authenticity still matters, even in the spotlight. And while the moment itself may have lasted only a few minutes, its impact continues to ripple outward, one share, one comment, one heartfelt reaction at a time.
As the story continued to spread, something interesting happened. The conversation around Blake Shelton slowly shifted from curiosity to reflection. People weren't just reacting to the moment anymore, they were thinking about what it said about fame, success, and human connection. Across social media, fans began sharing their own experiences. Some talked about meeting Blake Shelton years ago at concerts or public events, describing him as approachable and sincere even then. Others admitted they had never followed his career closely, but this single moment made them stop and pay attention. It wasn't about country music, it wasn't about television fame, it was about character. Many comments focused on how rare it feels to see patience in public figures today. The world moves fast, especially for celebrities whose schedules are often packed and whose time is constantly managed by others. Yet, in this moment, Blake Shelton chose to slow down. That decision, simple as it may seem, struck a chord with people who feel increasingly unseen in their own lives. Psychologists and cultural commentators even weighed in, pointing out why moments like this resonate so strongly. In a digital age filled with filters, scripts, and performance, authenticity stands out immediately. When someone with influence acts without expectation of reward, it feels honest, and honesty travels fast. What made the situation even more powerful was the absence of exaggeration. There was no dramatic backstory added later, no conflicting versions of events, no controversy. Just a shared understanding that something kind had happened and people wanted to acknowledge it. Blake Shelton himself remained characteristically quiet. No lengthy statements, no attempt to capitalize on the attention. That silence, intentional or not, reinforced the impression that the act was never meant for applause. It simply was what it was. Music industry insiders quietly noted how moments like these can shape an artist's legacy more than awards ever could. Records can be broken, charts can change, but reputation, once formed through genuine behavior, tends to last. For many fans, this moment didn't create a new image of Blake Shelton, it confirmed the one they already believed in. As days pass, viral moments usually fade. Another headline replaces the last. But this one lingered longer than expected, not because it was shocking, but because it was comforting. In uncertain times, people gravitate toward stories that remind them that kindness still exists, especially from those who don't have to offer it. The conversation eventually broadened beyond Blake Shelton himself. People began asking bigger questions. What would the world look like if more public figures acted this way? What if influence was measured not just in numbers, but in moments of empathy? What if slowing down became more valuable than standing out? For fans, the answer felt personal. Many said they felt proud, not just as supporters of an artist, but as witnesses to something positive. Others said the moment encouraged them to act differently in their own lives, to be more patient, more attentive, more human. In that sense, Blake Shelton's simple act created a ripple effect, not dramatic, not loud, but meaningful. And perhaps that is why this story mattered so much. It didn't demand attention, it earned it. As the headlines eventually move on, this moment will remain in the memories of those who saw it unfold. A reminder that behind the fame, behind the spotlight, there is still room for sincerity, still room for warmth, still room for choosing people over pace. Blake Shelton made headlines today, yes, but more importantly, he reminded people of something they often forget in a world driven by noise. Sometimes, the smallest acts leave the strongest impressions.